Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerd Cassette, formerly known as the G&G podcast. My name is Gato,
My name is Gabe.
and yeah, like you just heard, we actually rebranded our podcast to the Nerd Cassette from G&G podcast. I
Why
feel
you
like it's
ask?
well, if you're wondering why, it's because we think this is more fitting, because apparently everything we ever talk about we always end up rounding back to nerdy things. We talk about video games, we talk about movies, we talk about computer stuff.
Yep.
Um, and I feel like this is more in our umbrella, and this is what we know, it's what we like. So, welcome.
It was great talking about like relationship stuff and life stuff. But like Gato said, it always somehow ended up going back to nerdy stuff. So figure why fight it? Just embrace it.
That's right. And I mean, we'll probably still have a lot of variety in topics, but seeing as we're both nerds, I think we'll always have a nerdy take on whatever we talk about. Um, but yes, like you said, we're gonna be definitely embracing the nerdy side more than anything. So if you're a nerd like us, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Follow us along this journey. Click that like button. And how about you leave us in the comment section? What kind of stuff do you want to talk about? Like, are you a nerd or are you not a nerd? And do you still do you hang out with nerds? You know,
Yeah.
I think that's
Are you into nerdy things? You want us to talk about nerdy things?
yeah.
You want us
Have
to
you ever
learn
been?
about some other nerdy things?
Have you been nerd curious? I feel like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Nerd curious.
I feel like
Um,
the term nerd is like becoming more popular now. It's
yeah.
like okay to be a nerd, you know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's really funny. I was watching what's this movie called? It's what's it called? What's it called? I can't think of it the name, but it's a high school
Musical.
comedy.
High School
What
Musical.
did
Twilight.
No. No. Oh,
Um,
you can see my cat. No, it's not Easy A, but I feel like it's along the Duff. The
hey,
Duff.
I
The
did see that.
the
I saw that.
designated ugly fat friend. So
I
what's
didn't
funny
watch the
about
movie, but I
this?
saw the trailer for it.
Oh, you haven't seen the movie?
No.
Dude.
Good?
Yeah, it's actually really good. I think you should watch it. Do
Alright.
do a movie night with your wife and watch it because it's really fun. Even if we're 20 years past high school. Okay, maybe not 20, but
Not
yeah,
that
it's
far.
really good. But one of the things that I noticed is that she talks about like the bullies and the jocks and the nerds and stuff like that, and she, like the main actress, the main character, addresses that the nerds rule the world now. And I think looking back at like my high school days versus now, I feel like even in the mid 2000s, you still weren't allowed to be too nerdy. And I think I considered myself a closet nerd. So only a few select people knew that I was a nerd.
Mm.
But I tend to keep it to myself. And when people asked about video games and stuff like that, I used to be like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that game is probably good. I don't know. I play sports. And I did. But
NCAA, Madden.
did you have experience like
Oh no,
that?
I embraced it. I was a nerd.
So you were
I
a nerd
Yeah,
from the get
through and
go.
through, yeah. And I
Yes.
associated with other nerds who did the same nerdy stuff as me.
Man, that's lucky. See,
But
I don't,
I was in the back of the school a lot. We were the outcasts.
um, cause back in the day, it was like, yeah, being a nerd wasn't that cool. Like I'm sure you had like a close group of friends, and I'm not saying you weren't likable. I'm sure you were likable, um, but
People
you
hated
weren't
me.
like the.
Just kidding.
What did you say?
People hated me.
Uh, well, I guess I
I'm
can
just
see
kidding.
that. Nah.
I think partly gaming has made it. It's so is under the nerd umbrella now. Now that gaming is like more mainstream, it comes along with the label of nerd. Like it's okay to like Zelda. It's okay to play Switch.
I mean, and like we're in an era of like streamers too, you know, like people on YouTube. The first people to make it, they were like big nerds, you know, like Let's Plays. Who started in Let's Plays?
Oh yeah.
Was it Markiplier? No, it wasn't Markiplier. It was either PewDiePie or I don't even know who
I
else
think
was doing like
Markiplier was one of the first ones.
Markiplier. Yeah, he definitely was one of the first because I
Yeah.
remember like finding him like back in like 2012, 2013. But they did all the Let's Plays, and you know I feel like that was considered cringy for a while, but then it just like started blowing up, and then they started getting subscribers and likes, and then other people wanted to do it, and now if you look at Twitch, uh, and even like YouTube and even like TikTok and whatever platform you can stream on, I feel like it's saturated with gamers, both men and women.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I was saying gaming. I'm sure there's another aspect of it. I'm sure like D&D probably got more popular or some other form of nerdy comics or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let us know if there's a nerdy culture that we missed out on.
yeah, but it's funny because it's funny you say that because I do think there's different types of nerds. Like within the nerd culture, you're right. You do have like video game nerds. You have movie nerds, comic book nerds, D&D nerds. You have cosplay nerds.
Mm.
You have book nerd.
Yeah.
Like you have all of these types of nerds, and so I think I was more of a I was definitely a gamer nerd more than anything else. Uh, and then I started slowly going into movie nerd, and I mean obviously like you and I we like filmmaking, you know,
Yeah.
we like making videos and stuff like that. But I think there's more to it. We we enjoy like sci-fi fantasy stuff, right?
It's weird because I'm sure there were film nerds back in the day. They probably weren't called nerds, they were more like film critics, right? And I feel like, I don't know, because I feel like for me, as a film nerd, I'm more into like the cinematography, the editing, maybe not so much the acting, but kind of like a movie themes and all that stuff. I would assume that's like what a film critic also does, right?
I mean, yeah, I think you're right, but I think there is a difference between like that being your profession versus like now we all have a platform to speak on
That's true.
in.
That's true.
Um, but yeah, I think that like the nerd has definitely evolved, and and I think a lot more people are embracing it. I feel like a lot of people used to like me used to kind of hide it a little bit. Um, but I feel like I've bloomed into this beautiful nerd.
I feel
um,
like geek is the new nerd. Like the old version of nerd.
like if you're a geek, we make fun of you.
Yeah, right? I don't know. I don't Is there a difference now?
I don't know. Because I think what we are considering nerds back then used to be considered geeks.
Let's see. Definition
But
says a geek is an unfashionable or socially inept person.
is that really the description?
Yeah. Google at least.
Socially inept. Oh my gosh. That's
Sounds so
amazing.
bad.
It does sound really bad. So what is the description under nerd?
It says a foolish or contemptible person who lacks social skills or is boringly studious. A single-minded expert in a particular technical field.
I guess I'm not a nerd then.
And then, but there's a verb though. Apparently, nerd is a verb as well. It says engage in or discuss a technical field obsessively or with great attention to detail. Oh, I guess that's in the context of like nerding out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we nerd out on things,
Yeah.
and I still think that for today's standards, I think that might be outdated because I feel like we are nerds to an extent. If we're nerding
Yeah.
out about things,
Yeah.
we're a nerd. We're nerds. Um, but see, looking back at how hiding I was. So I guess this is more personal to me since you were always true to yourself.
Detrimentally, but yes.
Yeah, but me, I think one of the reasons why I kind of hit it a little bit is because I came into this country the second time. When I went into high school, I had come from Mexico, cultural shock and all of that, right? So it's a whole new country, really. The culture is so different, and when you don't know anything about anything here except the language and like just the generalization, like road, street, school, like everything works the same, but like the culture is different. I think one of my issues was like trying to find the right crowd, and I wasn't sure where to fit in, and I think that's why I became very shy, and I didn't really express how nerdy I was, how like into gaming I was. And I think a lot of it has to do with the image that people living outside of the US we get from movies, stuff like American Pie and stuff like Road Trip and all of those movies that portray high school, and they show you that the cool people are the jocks or just like musicians or basically not gamers. And so I think subconsciously and somewhat conscious, I guess, part of me is like, well, I don't want to show that because I want to be cool. I'm like the new kid in the school. I want to be the cool guy. So I started trying all these other things while suppressing my nerdy side a little bit. And I think that might have, I'm looking for a word here and I can't think of it, but like it messed with my relationships, like with my family, with my friends, like friends in general, and I think dating too. I think that's probably one of the reasons why dating was so hard for me when I was younger, is because I didn't know who I was. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. This is like a therapy session.
Welcome to the nerd therapy cassette session.
Yeah, for real, man. It feels like it. I'm just like, whoa. So that's why I didn't have any friends back then.
Man, I think for me it was, I was never into that. I knew I wasn't into the whole sports thing, and it was always, I think I grew up with video game. I always wanted to, find people that were interested in video games as well. And that's like the people I surrounded with. I mean, for me, dating, like my first girlfriend, we shared that interest in video games, Final Fantasy VII, and so it was like, it wasn't
Nice.
it wasn't a question of, is she too nerdy for me, or am I too nerdy for her, or something like that. So it was fine. Later though, when I grew up, like post college, I think I did suppress it. I suppressed it a little more.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, didn't really affect me that much. Maybe it's because I was already explaining. I was probably talking nerdy, not even knowing it.
See, to me, the way it affected me is because I suppressed it so much that I feel like the vast majority of my exes weren't really nerdy, like, at all. And so I feel like, I mean, obviously, one of the reasons why it never worked out with any of them, and they all lasted 2 months,
Mm.
4 months, or less, is because after being together for so long, uh, and understanding that they're not into video games, they're not into the type of movies that I was into, and anything like that, and it was mostly just like a superficial attraction. That's what made it hard for me, and that's what made it not last. It's the fact that I wasn't who I truly was, and they are who they are, but I'm pretending to be something that I'm not. And I think that's what caused a lot of problems in the end. Um, but it wasn't until I fully embraced who I was that things started to click a little bit more. And I don't know, I feel like we might have talked about this in our
I think
previous,
we, yeah, did.
yeah, in a previous dating episode where I talk about how I like decided to be honest with myself, and that's when like it started to make more sense. That's how I met
Yeah.
my current wife. It's because I was who I am, and I
Embraced
was just like,
everything you were.
yeah, I was like, this is me. I love this. I love video games. I love movies. I love music. I love just nerdy things in general. And she's like, yeah, I love that too.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. I think the one experience I had dating, and it was weird because it was, I think I'm a gaming nerd, but I'm not a book nerd. And so I think there might be like different types of subcategories of nerd. I remember dating, I went on a date with this girl. I think I may have talked about it in previous ones, but she talked about Harry Potter, the books, not the
Yeah.
movie. And I was just not interested because I'm just not a reader. I don't like reading. So that kind of, in my mind, it set off like, oh shoot, maybe we're not compatible in that sense because she's gonna be talking about books all the time. And I will be like, cool, not really interested in that.
So, in that sense, you think that she was too nerdy for you?
I think no, it was more of a we were incompatible nerds.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But see, this is something that I've also thought about because, you know, 8 years ago, uh, when I was dating, I feel like I went on a few dates with girls that are technically nerds, but they were too nerdy for me. So even if they liked like video games, if they liked like cosplay, if they liked books and movies and all of that, things that I enjoyed, um, I do feel like there's also like different levels of how much of your life belongs to that nerdiness of
Yeah,
you, and I feel like there's a certain level of nerdiness that I can't handle. Um, like even as a nerd, I like I
yeah,
said, I did take interest in other things. I did play sports. I played sports for over 10 years. You know, lacrosse, soccer, rugby, um, basketball, tennis, volleyball, um, stuff like that. And but I still like a lot of the things that I really love were like video games and movies. But if I ever encountered someone who, you know, the priority over everything else was like to play video games, and it's like, well, I need to take, you know, three to 5 hours of my day to play a video game, or being overly obsessed of like one specific thing, that it becomes a little too much for me. So even then, I was like, I need like a good medium, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but it's funny because if somebody was like a book nerd and they liked reading books and talk about books, and I don't read as much or talk about books as much, I I feel like I would have been okay with it depending on the rest of the nerdy levels that she was in.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That reminds me, because you brought up cosplay nerd, right? There was a
But
time I was a cosplay nerd. I think I maybe am. I think I'm probably still like a little bit cosplay.
Dude, I mean, I think we all are at to an extent.
I
Like, I'm
think
not
okay,
gonna
yeah,
say that I
not
don't like
to
dressing up.
not to antagonize a subculture here. There's dress up, and then there's cosplaying. There's one as well where you got dressing up like on Halloween. You know,
Hmm.
it's a form of cosplay. And then
Yeah,
there is cosplay,
like
where
real cosplay.
yeah, where you go to the like conventions, you spend like hours on your costume, sewing, knitting, stuff like that. I think that's the real, not to gatekeep. That sounds like gatekeeping, but there's like I don't know. Back when I was a cosplay nerd, it was I always had that distinction. I was like a proud badge, say, oh, I'm a cosplayer. But now that I'm not a cosplayer as much, I remember bringing that up with a girl that I was dating, and she was taken aback by it. So I think it was maybe in that sense I was too nerdy for her,
Yeah.
or it wasn't a compatible nerdiness.
Okay, but you're right. But see, that's what's funny is that there's certain people that do cosplay, uh, and they do it well enough that I admire it. And there's people that I think, well, you're a cool person. You're a cool person to be around. You're friendly. You're outgoing, and you do cosplay. And so it's like an addition to it, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's cool. And maybe this is just my perspective, but I've also encountered people where the cosplay is not that good. Uh, but I think it also has to do with like their
willingness
per-
to become the character.
not well no not even that. Like I guess I'm talking more of like who they are as a person.
Mm.
Um, because I think when I think about like the level of nerdiness that somebody is, I think I'm thinking more of like how awkward or like socially awkward
Ah,
they are.
yeah.
Because I feel like you can meet somebody that's like super cool, like an extrovert kind of thing, and they do all the nerdy things and they're very likable. And I can see how this is a very shallow perspective and it's very double standardy.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think there's like all these different levels, and there's a type of cosplayer where like their personality is the cosplay, or cosplaying is their personality. And then there's people that do cosplay and it's just a hobby.
Like, does commercialization come into play? Like the difference between if they're a commercial cosplayer versus a hobbyist cosplayer.
No, not even that. I
No?
just no, I just think that there's people that they're so consumed by their craft, and I'll even expand that because I don't wanna diss on cosplayers, but I actually know a lot of cosplayers and I think they're cool people and I like hanging around with them, and there's nothing wrong with them really. Like they're good at what they do, but when it comes to like real life,
Mm.
and when I say real life, I'm just like day to day thing, like normal day things, like shopping, paying bills, responsibility, work, all of that
Responsibilities,
stuff.
okay, yeah.
When it comes to all of those things, there you can talk about anything. You can have a normal conversation, and you don't feel that nerdiness come out too much. But when all they talk about is the craft, so whether it's gaming or movies or cosplay, and that's all they ever talk about, no matter what, that's when it becomes a little
I think that's
overcoming
where
to me.
geekiness comes in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Well, it's
saying.
like
Like, I think maybe geek is the replacer of nerd. Like, nerd was
yeah,
the geek back then, but now that nerds are cooler, geeks are, or I don't know. Maybe like,
because like,
maybe like in a group of people, you have the nerds, right? And then
mhm.
within the nerds, you have the geeks.
I think that's a thing. I think
Yeah.
there's even in a group of nerds, there's always going to be that one person or two people that are just the geeks of the group. But do you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
people that like let's say that you go shopping and everything in a grocery store is related to a video game or a movie. Like I don't mind a joke
Right.
here or there, especially if it's something like relevant for the time. So as an example, if Lord of the Rings had just come out, it's like the talk of the world and whatnot, and you're hanging out with a girl. Let's say you're on a date or something, and you get bread and you make a lembas bread joke, and you're like, oh, I would rather get lembas bread. And if you don't know what that is, it's just Lord of the Rings bread, and it's got like a leaf folded on it. I think
Nerd.
I think a joke here and there is fine. That's okay. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that that's distasteful or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if everything is a reference to, let's say, Lord of the Rings, then it becomes a little it's a little too much. So then you're talking about lembas bread, and then you talk about this person, how tall they are. Is like, oh, it's like they could be an elf, and
Yeah, I
then
see what you mean now.
and then like maybe your cutlery comes to dinner and you're like, oh, what if this was made out of mithril and stuff like that. And like you start mentioning all these references to this one thing. It's like you're turning
I
whatever you're talking
think
about into your personality, and I think that's a huge turnoff.
that might be more like obsession at this point. Like, I don't know if that, maybe it's like not even nerd talk anymore. It's more of just
Obsessive talk,
obsession. Obsessive nerd? Is that a new subculture, maybe?
maybe.
Did we just
Let's make it
coin a
one.
new subculture? Obsessive nerd?
It could be. Could be.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain why nerd is cool now. Is it because everyone else is becoming nerdy? Kind of like an Incredibles kind of thing. If everyone has superpowers, nobody has superpowers.
I mean, it seems like all the pop culture is based around being a nerd. Like pop culture right now is what like anything that has to do with like Star Wars. Yeah, I saw that too.
It wasn't just me, okay.
Um, it's like Marvel is trendy. TV shows are trendy, and
It's
that
because it's
seems
mainstream.
so is being a nerd mainstream.
Oh yeah, it's so mainstream now.
Yeah.
Like I
so
remember, like I was watching, I think it was Bachelor, because Brittany watches that, and
mhm.
then I get sucked in because of the editing is really good, and the drama's good. The way they edit things is really good. But anyway, I think one of the people brought up like nerdy stuff or being a nerd, and the fact that it's like said on TV. It's more like mainstream now.
It's like more acceptable.
Yeah. I think the
So
problem though, here's the downsides of the nerdiness. And that's something I noticed with like the gaming industry, right? I think because uh, this probably is like a whole separate video about it. But the main point would be because gaming is so mainstream, companies are saying, hey, we can make money off these nerds and we don't have to put a polished product out as much as in back in the day when gaming wasn't a big thing and you have developers that were like dedicated to the craft of
mhm.
making a good game. And now you have big corporations that are like, just put the bare minimum, the nerds will buy it. And now we have Cyberpunk, Battlefield, um, even
Halo.
the new Pokemon game. Did
Oh
you see
yeah.
that? Like people are complaining about the graphics on that.
Really?
Yeah,
People complain about everything nowadays.
that too.
The nerds have become the bullies.
That is so true. You know what? Yeah, Reddit, I feel like, has kind of um, cultivated that culture because of
Yeah.
nerds. You know, they're like didn't get to be the bully back in high school because they were bullied, and now we get to be behind a keyboard and bully others.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, I don't know.
So do you think? So us as nerds. So I had a hard time dating back in the day, up until maybe 3 years ago. You seem to have been more on the okay side because you were yourself. Do you think nerds or half nerds have a hard time dating nowadays?
Um, no, I think there's more nerds out there that can relate to other nerds.
Do you think it's the jocks that have a hard time dating now?
Oh, that is a good question. You know, uh, maybe. I don't know.
It's like people are like, yeah, I play football. Oh, gross. Get out of here. Get
You
your
know what?
testosterone out of my sight. I don't want your
To our
muscles.
to our jock viewers, has dating been harder?
Ooh, actually, that is a good question. If you're a jock, if you're listening to this nerd podcast, but you happen to be a jock, has dating been hard for you?
Isn't jock a derogatory term?
I don't know.
I don't know
I
if
never thought it
jocks
was,
would
but
want to self-identify, or maybe
I
they
don't know,
don't. I
man.
don't know.
I've
Maybe
been
that
out
is a trait of the jock, is that they boldly claim they are a jock.
but you think now it's a like an insult, like, oh, you're a jock.
I don't know. I feel like it is. Is it? Does it feel like an
I
insult
don't
to you?
think it is, but
No.
again, maybe people comment section let us know. Is calling someone a jock a derogatory term, or is it still calling someone a nerd? Because I know people still joke about that. Like, I'll nerd out on something and people will call me a nerd, but it's more in a loving, teasing way.
Right.
It's not necessarily like, oh, you're such a nerd, get out of my sight. I feel like now it's more like, oh, you're all you care about sports, all you do is fish. Get your
I
fish out
don't
of my
know.
face.
Yeah, I don't know. That is, or maybe it's because like the jocks, quote unquote, just like leave the nerds alone now.
Could
Maybe
be,
there's like
'cause-
peace. It's like the Matrix, where the humans and the machines created this peace pact where they don't fight each other anymore.
It's because we pay their salary.
Like, do kids, right? Like, do kids still get bullied? I'm sure they do, right?
I
But
think
like the
it's
typical where they like get shoved into lockers, wedgies and stuff, swirlies. I don't know. Is
I
that
think
still a thing?
right now it's more of a cyberbullying. I don't think physical bullying is as
Right.
prominent. But I might be wrong. I don't have kids. I don't really stay in touch with anybody who's in middle school or high school, for that matter.
That's good.
Well, I mean, I've had a sister-in-law that's in high
Oh,
schools,
okay.
but it's not like we talk all the time or anything like that. I see her like once a month, but we don't talk about school or anything like that. So I don't know. I just don't know what the experience is.
Yeah, I
But-
don't know. That's a lot of good questions that
So
hopefully our viewers can answer.
yeah, viewers, please let us know. Let us know your thoughts on this. Are we wrong, or are we right? Are you a nerd or a jock? And was that an insult? And if it was, I'm sorry. Our purpose is never to insult people.
Yes, we love
Um,
everybody.
Anyway. So yeah. We hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We are gonna start going on the shorter side. So we don't
Yeah.
want to take up a whole hour, more like 30 to 45 minutes. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you like the new logo, the new aesthetic.
We're back, baby.
That's right. We're
Season
back
3.
weekly. Let us know in your comments and in the comment section. Any questions, any topics you want us to talk about. All things nerd.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
I am Gato.
And I'm Gabe.
Peace.